Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Richard, how you doing?
Michael, I couldn't be any better if I was 80. But I'm getting to know your living room pretty well.
This is the family room, so I can come down here and just get away from everything.
How many kids you got?
Wife and I got 6 together, but they're all grown.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Hey, the grandkids we come over and we enjoy it.
Well, that's good. At least they're local.
Well, some of them are so, but we get a chance to see all of them pretty regularly. Haven't done so since COVID-19 been around, but we still get a chance to talk and shoot the breeze.
Well, it was a warm one out there today.
It was on fire.
And you know, I looked at the weather report and it doesn't look any better all week long.
Nope, I think the first time we see something cool is on Saturday. So, hello, Janelle, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Don't you love Janelle's clock?
Yeah, that's nice.
I love that clock. I want you to know
I
that.
love that clock too, thanks.
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, how in the heck long is this going on? And I can look right at your clock and figure that out.
Probably a bad thing. I should probably turn it around.
Oh, don't do that, Janelle. Don't do that.
And I'm thinking if this goes on very long, we may want to take a break, kind of what we think might be midway, just to give everybody a chance to pause and refresh.
Yeah, midnight for sure.
Well, I'm so glad that Zoom came back on. Did you guys hear that earlier today, Latrice found out that Zoom was down all across the country?
Wow.
Oh, and I thought, we are not going to, tell me we're not going to postpone this thing again. And luckily, we're not having to.
I heard that. I know that's right. I'm gonna run and get me some water and I'll be right back.
Okay, yep.
Oh, come on, come on.
Hey, you gotta
You
get
can do
ready,
better
man. Hey, you gotta be
You can
prepared.
do better than that.
Hey.
Hi, Lee. Can you hear me, Lee?
Yes, can you hear me?
Good. Yes.
Hello.
Hi, Ethelene.
Yeah, good evening, Ethelene.
Good evening to you.
Oh, there's Ruby.
Hi, Ruby.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Just wanted to update everybody. I got Ethelyn's signature, so it's now going to Lee, the email. So watch out for that, Lee.
Okay.
And I did update your email. I was like, why is he not getting it? I looked at the email and it wasn't incorrect, so.
Good.
Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
Hi, Henry.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Okay.
It's Monday.
Yes. So Latrice, I'm going to ask you as the Zoom host to call the roll of those invited guests who are participating. Is that all right?
Maybe I can make someone a co-host because I'm trying to run the YouTube and this.
Oh,
Let's see.
well, maybe our Madam Secretary could be a co-host. And so do you,
Yeah.
as co-host, do you see a list of those people who are participating? Hi, Reverend Hendricks.
Ruby,
Hey.
do you see a list
Welcome.
of people now?
Wait, where would I see that?
At the bottom, it should say participants. And then if you click it, it should give you a little box.
Oh, okay. I also see a waiting room button.
Yes.
So I see a list of attendees. Are these everybody who's invited, or we're just calling everybody who's on the list?
Well, it would be nice if we could call the names of those invited, those people who were invited, but there won't be any way, Ruby, for you to differentiate, will there?
No.
I mean, I see the list of
Yeah.
people.
Well, I think we'll dispense with the calling of the roll, and hopefully we'll hear from everybody if we don't see them on the screen, so that we can get a gauge.
It's
Okay.
6. I'm going to let everyone in.
Okay. Okay. And I'm going to get my earbud. I'm going to get my earbud. Thank you.
What I'll do is mute everyone, and then I'll go through and individually unmute.
Well, since it is 6 o'clock, I think, and it may be a long meeting, and I am sensitive to everyone giving up their time this evening, so I'm going to get started, and I'm just going to welcome you all. My name is Janelle Swanberg. I'm the current chair of the Davenport Civil Rights Commission, and I do want to welcome you all to tonight's meeting. The commission values your participation, especially at the end of what was probably a long, hot day. I want to welcome invited. Mike needs to be muted.
Okay, bye-bye.
Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I want to welcome our invited guests, Mayor Mike Madsen, members of the Davenport City Council. I think those who registered are Judith Lee, Marion McGinnis, and Patrick Peacock. Davenport Chief of Police Paul Sikorsky, Chairman of the Davenport Union of Professional Police Michael Greenleaf, representatives from the NAACP, LULAC, Black Lives Matter, Boots on the Ground, and Quad City Pride. I also want to welcome members of our community. The format of this meeting is a bit different from our August 1st meeting, where the primary focus was community member stories. Tonight's meeting will be more in the nature of a working meeting, with invited participants discussing possible initiatives to recommend to the Davenport City Council for consideration. Community members will have time near the end of the meeting for public comment. The Davenport Civil Rights Commission is charged by ordinance with studying discrimination, attempting to eliminate it, and making recommendations to the mayor and city council regarding proposed legislation. In investigating local discrimination, we have received disturbing testimony from members of the community of unequal treatment by some members of our local police force. As I said at the beginning of our last meeting, we are not anti-police, but we are pro-fairness, we are pro-equality. We believe our police are a vital part of our social contract. But with yet another tragedy playing out today in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we want to prevent a similar incident here. Nobody thinks it can happen in their community until it happens in their community. We have convened this meeting to have a frank discussion about the best way forward for all in our community. We applaud the work that is ongoing toward this end, and we hope this meeting can add to that work. This discussion is no different than those happening all across our state and all across our country. We were greatly disheartened by the allegations contained in the statement by the Davenport Union of Professional Police to the effect that our staff director is attempting to reform their profession without input from them. When she conducted listening sessions with members of our community and reported back to us, she was carrying out the directive of the commission. It is the commission that has convened these meetings as a response to those reports, as it is a part of our charge as a civil rights commission. We also want to make it clear that we condemn the personal attacks leveled at a member of our commission and at our director by the chair of the Union of Professional Police, Greenleaf, in response to our calling this meeting. We find no place for personal attacks in these discussions and ask that tonight's conversation will be respectful toward all. With that, I formally open this meeting, and I would ask for general approval of the agenda. I think there are minutes listed on the agenda for the August 1st meeting. Those are not yet available. And I'm not sure whether we want to have public comment at the very end of the meeting, or if we rather would want to have public comment near the end of the meeting, but before any deliberations and voting on any specific recommendations. Does anybody have a thought on that?
Hey, Janelle, this is Mike. I think we ought to do it toward the latter part of the meeting. I think that would serve this meeting well. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mike, are you saying which we should do at the end?
I'm sorry, we should go ahead and have the public comment at the latter part of the meeting, as we would probably serve us best to do it that way, to listen to the input from of the conversation that we have with various individuals. Thank you.
And so that then we would vote after that?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Is that the general consensus that we'll do it that way?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm concerned. I thought this was going to be a listening meeting, and voting on anything in this context, I would not consider it well thought out. I would say that any resolution that we're going to approve ought to be written well and discussed well. And I think it would be too soon to put some sort of a resolution out tonight. I don't support putting out any resolution at all tonight because we haven't had enough time to think about it.
Well, I guess I would propose that we have our meeting, have our discussion, discuss some specific proposals, listen to the public, and then we can decide as a commission whether we want to vote tonight or rather undertake voting and further refinement at some later date. How does that sound?
Fine.
Okay.
Janelle, this is Mike again. I greatly respect Richard's opinion there. By us merely voting tonight does not say we have to write a resolution tonight. The resolution can be written in a fashion, and we can take time to do that. But we can, I think, as adults, make a decision tonight whether or not we're going to write that resolution. And I think it's probably better done tonight.
So the idea, Mike, the idea would be that we would at least identify those initiatives that we think ought to be put forward, and then refine those further before they would be submitted to the council.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree with Mike.
And I think that basically what we need to do is go with the flow of this meeting. We have decided, we have committed ourselves to submitting recommendations to the city council and police department. Have a conversation of this meeting goes, and see where we stand as the meeting draws to a close, and then decide if we're going to make, whether or not we're going to make decisions tonight, definitive decisions tonight, or take it back to the next meeting of the commission in its general meeting as an item on that general meeting, and formulate the actual resolutions within the meeting of the commission.
Okay. Well, I think we are now ready to begin the substantive portion of the meeting. And I would ask our director, Latrice Lacey, to put up on the screen some of the initiatives that have been enacted in other parts of the state. And we hope that that can serve as a, a starting point for tonight's discussion. So I open it now for discussion. So Latrice, I would ask you then to call on people as you did in the prior meeting. And I think if you, what's the convention, Latrice? If you want to be recognized, you should indicate that.
Yeah, raise your hand, I think.
In the participants, because we don't see all of the active participants in this meeting as long as the document is on the screen.
Are the articles on the screen, are they from our August 1st meeting when we had the community talking?
I think so. I think so, Ethelene. Generally speaking, I think they are. So Latrice, I'm back to, how do people ask to be recognized? Do they go in?
I have all of the people who are supposed to be on the panel. I think they're all unmuted.
So they'll just speak up.
Well, we can't see them, so we don't, so it's hard to tell. Although we'll be talking on top of each other. I think they have to go to the participant, to the participant icon and raise their hands, and then Latrice, as the host, will call upon them in order.
Is that okay with you, Latrice?
That's fine. Ruby's also a co-host, so she can see it too. So if I miss it, one of us should catch it.
Okay.
Okay. And did all members of the meeting hear that if you want to be recognized, if you go into the participants, click on the participants icon at the bottom of the screen, and you can click on the little hand, and then you'll be raising your hands, so to speak, to be recognized.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
They are unmuted, so I think when they start speaking, I can't see the screen the way you all can from my side. So I think when they start speaking, they'll pop up.
Yeah. So I guess, until we reach chaos, this could be like a real meeting, and we could just talk.
But we have a lot of people.
So ready, set, go.
I don't see anybody raising their hands.
Oh.
Okay, I guess I'll go since no one else is. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay. So I like what is up on the screen very much. It does cover a lot of the things that we talked about at the last meeting. I think reallocation of funding is imperative, because until we do some reallocation of funding, we're not going to see a difference. One of the things that's really key from my standpoint, is ending the school resource officers, because the studies show that that's key, has been key to, think about it, 10 years ago, and I may be wrong on the exact number, but approximately 10 years ago, we didn't have any police in the schools. So what's happened in those 10 years? Have the police made anything better? No. We've had increases in violence and increases in the school to prison pipeline. And so it's not enough for people to say, this school resource officer is a really nice guy and he has friends and he's got friends among people of color. That doesn't cut it. It doesn't answer the studies that show the impact, negative impact of having school resource officers in the schools. I also think that the review decentralize the decision-making part where you have some sort of civilian review is absolutely necessary for minorities to have some confidence in our law enforcement officials once again. I have heard, I'm part of QC Pride. I'm one of the co-founders of QC Pride. And one of the things that I hear repeatedly is that when Davenport police officers are called to situations of domestic violence involving LGBTQ persons, they tend to not take it seriously, not follow through, not press charges, and sometimes literally taking the side of someone against the opponent who is against a transgender person. So, that's just, what I have heard from some people in several instances. So, those are examples of why you've got to have some independent review. And the DCAP commission that we currently have, I think, is not independent review. It's been captured basically by people who have an invested interest in maintaining the status quo and maintaining relationships. So I don't think you're going to get what we need from DCAP, because I mean, for instance, everybody in the community knows they never followed up, never completed the investigation when it was documented that there was racial profiling. So that's just one example. I don't want to argue specifics. I'm just telling you there's so many things out there that lead to distrust by minorities in our community that it is time for some major reforms, and I wholeheartedly endorse the list.
Thank you.
I'm one of the newer commissioners, and I have before me the list of the 30 speakers from the former from our the meeting on the 1st, and I have down their comments, and some of their comments were the same as the commissioner just spoke to. The school resource officer, I think 3 or 4 of them gave comments about that, and 2 of them gave comments about civilian review board, how that would be a good thing, and at least one of them gave comments about DCAP, how he had been a part of the DCAP commission, and how we haven't, how it was said at that time that profiling was done. And so he made a comment about dealing, we will, whatever we see and write down, that's what we'll deal with. And so we need to make sure that we are, going over that. I won't add to individual ones right now. I'll, like I said, I have a sheet before me with all 30 of the comments on, and I, stand ready to talk about any of them, and share my thoughts about anyone that we're talking about.
Thank you, Ethelene.
I don't see on this list, and I would like to see on this list, an investment in hiring some social workers on the police force, because not every call that the police officers receive requires a gun, and that there are calls that really require more counseling than a gun, and in a non-threatening fashion. When I was in Lincoln, Nebraska, the Lincoln Police Department, in cooperation with the Mental Health Center, trained a corps of community clergy to serve as chaplains. Yes, they were chaplains available to the police officers. They were also on-call chaplains, and police officers could go into a situation like a domestic disturbance, and when they felt that they had taken that situation to a point where the violent aspects were tamped down, they could call in a chaplain to continue working with these people. And the police officers could go on their way and fight crime. But our social workers being available for certain calls lends a more humane and softer uh, atmosphere for the relationships we want to create.
And I would just ask everybody, commissioners, invited guests, to, before you begin speaking, please identify yourself very clearly so that we all know who's making the comments. Thank you.
Ethelene Boyd. One of the speakers on the first was Kimberly Dotson, and she was a professor with a PhD in criminology, and she's a retired law enforcement officer. And I thought she shared comments that were noteworthy. She talked about having resided in Davenport for 8 years and being invited by other citizens to speak, and that she thought that the SKO was not a good idea, and that that instead of talking about defunding police, she thought it would be better thought of or said as reallocating funds and not just taking away funds from our police. She and she spoke about the fact that the police are asked to be everything to everybody, and that we should not be making the police responsible for every problem that's going on. Maybe we could, talk on, one of the items or one of the issues, and everyone can say what they feel about it, and we can. Is that a possibility?
So I'm sorry, Ethelene, are you suggesting that we talk about reallocation of funding as an issue now?
Well,
Or,
are we going to just throw out our thoughts? Are we going to make it a point to deal with all 30 of the issues that our community members brought forth, to make sure that we are addressing their comments?
well, do folks want us to go through them one by one, starting with reallocation and working our way down? I mean, Latrice, are there in fact 30 on this list?
No.
I mean, Ethelene, were you talking about the 30 people who talked at the first meeting?
Yes,
Okay, okay. So Latrice, is the page that we have up on the screen now, is that it, or is there another page?
This is the full page.
For
This is it.
reallocation of funds.
Yeah.
To clarify, Patrice, you're going through the 8 can't wait list, right?
Yeah, this is the 8 that was on the policing reforms report.
Right.
And then we have the breakdowns within those for what other
Right.
cities were doing.
Right. So this is it. And I mean, feel free to raise other issues, but I'm just asking, do people want to make comments on whatever they want, or should we take these one at a time?
It's probably orderly to just go through the list, and then if there's anything else, like a topic that's not included here, then we can add that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to reallocation of funding, investment in social workers. And I have to say, I'm not aware of how many social workers are currently working with the Davenport Police Department. So I don't know if there's anyone present on the meeting who could talk about that. I don't know if Chief Sikorsky is with us, or
Janelle, I was in the chat room. It was a note that indicated that the chief, well, no, I'm sorry. Let me back up off that. No, that's not correct.
It looks like Michael Greenleaf raised his hand, that he's not muted. So
Mr. Greenleaf, can you tell us how many social workers are currently working with the Davenport Police?
He must be still muted. I don't hear him.
No, he's not muted. Oh, he is now.
and now Jerry Nagel has raised her hand, and I am hitting unmute, but it's not. I think they have to unmute themselves. Yeah.
Yes.
So Jerry, if you have another way to, because I think that the chief and the mayor are in, oh, there it is. Okay. I think they're in council chambers together. So she's unmuted. So I think that's them in council chambers.
Can you guys hear us now? This is Chief Sikorsky.
There you go.
It's kind of low, Chief. If you can speak up a little bit.
How's this, sir?
I can hear you. I don't know about anybody else.
Okay, I'm just gonna give you just a real quick rundown. Currently, we don't have any social workers working at the Davenport Police Department. We do work with Family Resources and the Department of Human Resources extensively and have liaisons, but we don't have any currently working at our police department.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So are there particular areas, I think Rabbi Karp mentioned mental health. It would seem that maybe domestic violence would be another area where social workers might be helpful, especially if they're trained in domestic violence situations. I think we all recognize those are very dangerous, potentially dangerous situations, but there are social workers, I think, who are trained in domestic violence. Are there other areas that we think social work would be particularly helpful to the police?
Ethelene Boyd, two of the speakers on this past Saturday on the 1st talked about the importance of training when dealing with people who had issues in terms of mental health, that it was important that we be trained, that the officers be trained in that area, and making that a part of the training.
This is Mike Guster. When we talk about social workers and things of that nature, which is very, very important in identifying issues or problems with our juvenile kids as they grow from K through high school. And so if you got, for instance, this YAP program that we had been looking at that will address problems, school problems at the home, whatever problems in that particular pipeline that may be affecting that kid's behavior. When we spend money up front on a child versus downrange, it gets a much better outcome. And when we deal with restorative justice, it takes money and put it on the top end and help to alleviate a child that is headed to, that is introduced to the criminal justice system. And let me tell you that when we take and look at the data, people of color are disproportionately associated with that stream of that particular introduction to the criminal justice system. We are more likely to go in there and kids never really come out and do anything that's effectively help them to succeed in society. So what I'm saying is that some of this money could be taken to reallocate with family resources. Family resources is in the process of really relooking some things that they could do in terms of helping kids at an early age. And so my suggestion would be to have funds reallocated over there where they can help alleviate a lot of this funds and stuff that's spent downrange in terms of housing a child or a defendant, however you want to put it, or where a child meets an SRO at school. And once again, disproportionately people of color are introduced to the pipeline, the prison. And so we've got to think about ways that we can best serve the whole community versus part of the community. I know a lot of people that are really satisfied with SROs, and but when SROs, their contact with mostly children of color, the results doesn't end very well. And so we've got to look at that, and we've got to pump some money into this mental health program, this process of identifying those kids and have something where a child can enter into some type of restorative justice early on versus later on in their schooling. That's all I have. Thank you.
So Mike, if I could just clarify, so you seem to be saying that you don't think maybe that these social workers would be a part of the police force, but rather those efforts would be undertaken really before a child, was in the juvenile court system. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct, and that's where we ought to be looking at implementing a restorative justice, even in the schools. This zero policy has led to disproportionately kids of color entering the criminal justice system more so than their white counterparts. Thank you.
And that's the zero tolerance policy?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Anybody else?
I'm gonna this is Latrice. I'm gonna get who wants to be co-host, because I can't look at both screens for the notes and people raising their hand. So there's some people with their hands raised. And I'm not sure if that's somebody in council chambers wanting to speak, or if that's just been there the whole time.
Make me the co-host. I'll help out. Thank you.
Okay.
Because I'm also taking notes.
Yeah, thanks, Ruby and Latrice. Thanks, Mike.
Uh-huh.
More ideas on reallocation of funding.
So this is Ruby, and I just wanted to, um, say something regarding, I know Mike said something about reallocating funds and um, helping family resources, provide, or expand their services. But again, we also have to be careful and aware that um, we already have a shortage of mental health professionals in our community. So if we want to do that, we also have to be aware of, their workloads and, the possibility of, I don't know how much more uh, caseload family resources would be able to um, absorb.
Well, and Ruby, I guess, sometimes it seems that if more funds are available, then more people can be hired, and that tends to, increase the resources that are available. That assumes that there are those trained professionals who can do that work. But I think in a perfect world, that's how it would work. More
Yeah,
money means more people.
yeah, it's tough right now. I mean, all over the
Yeah,
country, mental
I'm
health
sure.
professionals,
I'm
health
sure it is.
professionals,
Okay.
shortage.
Okay, I think Mike Greenleaf, 3 people have their hands picked up, raised, and Mike Greenleaf had his raised earlier. So let's go to Mike Greenleaf. Can't hear you.
Mike, if you're muted, you can unmute yourself by clicking the little microphone with a
No,
line through it if you see that.
he's unmuted. He's unmuted.
Okay.
Maybe the volume on his device is down.
Maybe we just lower his hand.
Okay. Okay. I did that, but I think I lowered everybody's hand that was on here. So whoever had their hand raised gonna have to do it once again.
Or anybody who wants to speak up, just please say your name and let us know who you are. And
I think perhaps we should clarify there are selected panelists who are going to speak. So Max Hudson, if you are a community member, you have the opportunity to speak at the meeting.
Well, if there is no one else who from the roundtable here who wishes to speak about reallocation, let's move on to the next subject.
Okay.
We'll see.
anybody else on reallocation of funding? If not, then I think we are on to safe housing. And, don't feel that you're foreclosed from going back to something if something else occurs to you. But let's take up the matter of safe housing. Housing insecurity, the impact that that has throughout our community. When people get evicted, the kids can't go to the same school. They lose their friends. They're isolated. It often leads to people losing their jobs and can't get to their work. It's a ripple effect that really can be catastrophic to a family and to a community. So what do we do about that? Do we want to encourage the city council to increase their funding of housing?
Janelle, this is Mike Guster again. Back to Family Resources, and I want to reiterate the fact that Family Resources is currently looking at reorganizing their services. And this could be an area that they could recommend to well, let me back up. Yes, I think we could have put some money over here, some extra money over here to help people out and stuff. I think it would be a good starting point. But again, Family Resources, the way that they are setting up some reorganizations over there, they are going to try to do some of this, and this process, safe housing would be a part of that they would identify as a problem and could be brought to whatever part of department in the city and other organizations that could help out with respect to providing safe housing.
This is Henry Karp. Just to clarify, I want to make sure everybody understands that not all of these items on this list are about reallocating funding of the police. The reallocation of funds is one item. Now, we may want to go back and add suggestions for reallocation of funds beyond what we've already had. But safe housing, for example, doesn't have necessarily mean taking funding away from the police to provide safe housing. And, but safe housing is an issue that that does contribute to the problems that we're struggling with, and so the city needs to look at means of providing safe, affordable housing for, especially its lower income residents.
Yeah, that's a good point, Henry. Thanks. So bottom line, we would, if we go with this recommendation, it would be to increase funding for safe housing programs.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Also, I think also that I think we need to protect, we have to protect neighborhoods, especially neighborhoods towards the center of the city, where all too often, where people are living now, who can afford to live there, are having their neighborhoods rezoned and taken up and gentrified, for example. I think that we need to protect the housing that people are living in right now.
Richard, did you have some thoughts about this?
Is Richard still with us?
I'm still there.
Did you have some thoughts about the provision of safe housing by the city of Davenport?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I've been muted here and trying to get unmuted for some time. I have a definite statement to make about the housing issue. And it follows up on the things which you have said about the impact that housing can have. Right now, the city is considering the possibility of selling all of its low-income housing, and that could go to an out-of-state, out-of-town for-profit operator. And in my mind, that would be a disaster, largely because one of the things that can happen is that with the housing is that it's possible if they can sell it for the appraised value that the company purchasing the housing could start selling it off if it can get more than the appraised value. And so I believe that this is going to have when you figure there are 42 separate housing units being potentially sold, plus the Heritage Building, which I think has 120 units downtown. This cannot be simply a matter of selling to the highest bidder. The maintenance and the management of that housing, wherever it goes in the future, has to be ironclad, especially when you consider that it could go out of state. The real estate folks, I think, are in Michigan. Well, if our local housing, low income housing, is being run by for-profit organizations that are out of state, and it's difficult to communicate that way, we've got a problem. We know one thing about low income housing, and that is there's no upward lift to the income. And what that means is that the federal government isn't going to increase its spending for this housing. It means that the low income families can't be expected to increase. And we know that the for-profit organization purchasing this stuff is going to want to make their profit. I've worked in low income housing now for 30 years, and I've seen the effect when out of state or out of city ownership goes to these organizations, and they're trying, and they got a cap on their money, and they're still trying to make money on it. And so what happens is the maintenance and the management goes down, because that's the only way they can get their money. I don't mean to get real long on this, but to me, this is the most important civil rights issue that we should be considering right now, because the effect of selling the city's property scattered all over the town is going to be a long-term problem when that occurs. And so that's my thinking on that the safety of that housing right now ought to be a high priority for protecting our minority and low-income families. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Those are very good comments. Thanks.
Richard, as an Ethelene Boyd, as a new commissioner, I listened to a 2-hour session on fair housing and the 3 dimensions, the fair housing, with COVID-19, and best practices and race equity, gender fairness, and all those things were being talked about. So I want to just applaud you for saying that, because even though I don't have a clear understanding of all the issues with that, I know that there are just really important issues concerning fair housing. And I do look forward to talking and learning more about it.
Any other safe housing comments? I think we all agree this is a really important issue, and it does kind of underpin so many social ills that can be prevented if safe housing is available. So it's really important.
I think this is Ruby, and I think too that all these things are good to hear, good to work on. But again, I think about, when we have projects like these, where would the money be coming from?
Well, certainly a lot of it is federal, I think. And, I think cities oftentimes, make applications for grants for all sorts of housing. And this would be something where I think we would be encouraging the city to go after more dollars to fund these programs.
Yeah, I mean, like I have a capstone project about, housing in Scott County. A lot of them are not safe because of what do you call this, lead. And
Yes.
again, they cost money. And it's there's only so much resources that can go around, the county, the community. Sometimes you got to think about outside resources coming in. And then again, that probably leads to whatever Richard was talking about earlier.
No, go ahead, Richard.
What I wanted to point out, I've worked with our ecumenical housing development group for years, and we went into two places. We went in first to some of you know the old Holy Trinity Mission School down at 6th and Marquette. That was a terrible neighborhood when we went in there in '94. It had the highest crime rate of any of the areas, and we also went into the what was known as Horizon Homes, which is 112 units of low-income housing out on north of the Walmart in the west end of Davenport on Fairmont Pine. And I tell you what, we took the crime out of that neighborhood. And what it amounted to is we brought in good management, and we've kept the property up. You don't have to, we ended up buying a whole block of duplexes that were poorly managed by different owners. Every house was managed by different. We bought up the whole block. And I tell you, I went out there the other day and it looked good. And not only did it look good, but we heard a report from our own people about relationship with the police, and the police do not have to be out there much anymore because of good management. And so good management and good maintenance go a long way towards creating safe housing that is not subject to crime in the neighborhood. And that's going to be one of my themes for the months ahead, is that we make sure that the city is covering itself when my argument is that the management and maintenance ought to be local, and it ought to be a not-for-profit, not sold off to somebody and with the idea that they're going to get the biggest dollar and everything will be okay. That's not the way it's going to be if we do that. Thank you.
Yeah, in regard to Ruby's question, experience has been that we really can tell priorities by spending. Individuals' priorities are, what an organization's priorities are, what a city's priorities are, what a nation's priorities are, because people, or right up the line to the nations, they spend their money, where they spend their money, that's where their priorities are. And then we have to look and see if those are where their priorities should be. And the priorities of a community need to be the well-being and welfare of all of their residents. So where are we going to find the money? We have to look at the priorities of spending in our city, in our state, in our nation.
This is Mike Guster again. I agree wholeheartedly with what Henry just said. You can tell a lot about an organization or a city or any place where you have employment or where you live. You can tell a lot about a place by where they put their priorities and where they spend their money. And so folks, my belief is that we've got to find the money to alleviate some of the problems that we have and the economic perspective here in Davenport with the disproportionate, I guess, jobs, healthcare, and some other things, which will go to free up money from certain departments in the long run and be able to address some of these issues. Thanks.
Any other housing comments? If not, I think we may be able to move on to SROs. A couple people have already mentioned this issue. Other thoughts?
Let me, and I hate to be weighing in so much, but then I don't hate to be weighing
That's
in
okay.
because this is a source of where this is a place where you got to go ahead and lay some things out. Studies show that you know, SROs, when it comes to introducing kids to the pipeline to prison, is very prevalent. And I know there are many people out there that talk about this program and really love it and stuff. And you know, my deal with SROs is that they should be policing instead of serving in these positions. Now, if they're going to be in the schools, then SROs should only be brought in the case of where you got life or death. And you know, and there was I think the Davenport Education Association submitted some things that would define the roles and responsibility of an SRO. Those things need to be looked at, and their roles need to be clearly defined if they're going to be there. But they cannot be the first person that a Black child sees, because a Black child does not get the benefit of the doubt, and the study shows that. And if somebody wants to see that, I'll be glad to provide that to them. So children of color have seemed to have get this road out of the schools once they are introduced to the criminal justice system, whether it's the juvenile justice system or whatever part they come in contact with. It further takes them or their participation in school or their ability or their need or their want diminishes every time they meet with an SRO or the criminal justice system. So the point here is that that role needs to be clearly defined, and then the zero policy that the school has need to be relooked. I can tell you what, from my own perspective, if zero tolerance would have been in effect when I was going to school, I probably wouldn't be here talking with you. I'd probably be in jail somewhere. Because back in the school where I come from, when they integrated, there's a whole lot of problems going on with racial issues and stuff, and the N-word being shot out. And let me tell you, I was in a lot of fights. And simply putting it, zero tolerance doesn't work. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any other thoughts on SROs, school resource officers? Then I think we are moving on to pretrial release. Latrice, you want to explain a little bit about the cash bail system and what this reform is about?
I think it refers to lower income people who are arrested for various probably nonviolent crimes that cannot afford to post bail. So they end up staying in the county jail, and then I believe they get charged for their stay at county jail. So it just ends up putting them further into poverty. And that also removes the person from their community. If you're arrested, you're probably going to lose your job because you're sitting in jail and not going to work. So it has a huge impact on people's lives before they're even convicted of a crime.
And, you know, I think it probably is a little bit better during this time of COVID-19, but as you say, Latrice, whether you're convicted or not, you're charged for your keep in the county jail. And there are massive amounts of court debt that really become problematic for low income people and can just wreck their credit and really wreck their life, because court debt, of course, is not dischargeable in bankruptcy. It can just be a huge problem. I don't know that this is something that the city council is going to be able to do much about. It certainly is a huge problem, and McPherson brought that to light. Anybody have something to say other than we're against it?
It's Henry again, and I just have to say that a year ago, I sat through several federal hearings. Undocumented immigrants being tried federally. And it was very clear that the system of pretrial release is stacked against people of color. I'll never forget one of those hearings in which these federal prisoners were brought in, and they're always brought in their jumpsuits and in chains, leg irons and handcuffs, not allowed to speak to their family. And the case before them was a drug dealer who was there with his wife and his children, and they were all dressed very, very well. They all looked pretty spiffy, and they had their time before the judge, and then the judge let them go. Then set them off on their own recognizance. Here was someone selling drugs, sent off on his own recognizance. And there are people, brown people, who their greatest sin is they want to live in this country, and they're in leg irons. And they're kept from even talking to their family in the courtroom. This is, and that's one instance. This is an issue that has to be addressed. And if it's not addressed with the city, it has to be addressed somewhere else, but it has to be addressed.
And Henry, I agree. You are breaking up. I don't know if there's anything you can do with the volume on your computer, but you were kind of breaking up. It was hard to understand you.
I will try and raise the volume on my computer.
Thank you. That does seem better.
The connection.
Thanks.
Okay.
Is there anything else by anybody on pretrial release? Certainly something for our state court system too. take a hard look at. If there's nothing else on that, I think we're on to investing in care, not control. The example, Latrice, can you talk about what the Des Moines and Cedar Rapids initiatives were? If you have it handy.
They were calling for decriminalization of low-level drug offenses. Des Moines, I believe, has implemented a panel to study ways that they can decriminalize minor marijuana offenses. And I think Cedar Rapids has a proposal in front of them to decriminalize that as well.
And again, this is not something that the Davenport City Council would take up, but it's a huge issue. And I think this is a very common reform that is being discussed in many places.
And I think the city council could take it up. They could do it as a proposal for how their police force is going to handle those issues. It won't obviously change the state law, but it can change how their local policies are towards it.
Right.
One way that it is directly related to what we're doing here is that I was really disturbed by one of the comments that were made in the August 1st listening session. Brian Wingert informed us that Blacks are 8 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis in Davenport than whites. Now that is a police issue.
Yeah, Henry, that to me, this is Mike Guster again. You know, when the when you talk about marijuana usage, and when you look at how the disproportionate number of Black people are charged for these offenses, it's just, and when you contrast it with their white counterparts, and when there are less Blacks and more white that use marijuana, that it tells me that something's wrong with that picture. And so, you know, when police make a routine traffic stop or something of that nature, you know, to let the white counterpart off, or white person off versus a person of color, and say go on and confiscate their marijuana and stuff and say, hey, I don't want to catch you out here again. You know, it's something that we got to look at. And the reason why I say that also is the fact that it appeared to me that that very well may be happening. I don't have any evidence that is happening, but when you look at the statistics and it says that more Blacks are charged with it than whites, and then when you have less Blacks that are part of only 11% of the population, and when the other group of individuals far outnumber Blacks, that just show a picture that's not good for the police department.
So we wouldn't be calling this decriminalization, which would be a matter of the statute, but really an enforcement issue. Well, which we would take to the city council.
Well, Janelle, I think you know, you got to look at it a couple of ways, and so I think yes, it is. The city council should take a look at it and determine what steps and we should go in this area, because once again, there is an issue here when the data show that I'm more likely to go to jail versus a white person. That's there's a problem when you look at the stats.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
So it's something that the city council should take up. And I'm not talking about people running around here trafficked in marijuana and other drugs and stuff. You know, traffic versus a person that's personally using or whatever should be taken into consideration. I mean, it's legal all around us around here and stuff. So that's something the city council should take up.
Yeah, I think we're talking about low level.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It goes hand in hand with traffic stops.
Yes.
Oh,
exactly.
racial profiling issue, traffic stops. We have reports from Latrice's listening session about how issues like uh, 3 black men should not ride in a car together because they're more likely to be stopped. And issues like that. And they're all enforcement issues. And that comes directly into what we're here for, what we're here to talk about.
Anything else on this topic? We may have covered it pretty well. If not, then I guess we're on to decriminalizing survival. This is another kind of along the same lines, I guess.
Ethelene Boyd, one of the speakers at our August 1st meeting talked about getting Narcan kits into the community for Black and brown men, the injection kits and vials. Would that be under decriminalizing survival?
It could be, yeah. And I don't know, Latrice is part of this, again, an enforcement issue about prostitution and human trafficking and those sorts of issues.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, Mrs. Boyd, I think you're correct. The issue with the Narcan kits, I think it was raised by Kim Brown with QC harm reduction, was people are sometimes afraid to even have the Narcan kit because it's illegal in Iowa to have drug paraphernalia, and the needle for the Narcan kit could be perceived as drug paraphernalia, but it also could save someone's life. So having discussions about decriminalizing survival and kind of destigmatizing drug use would have significant effects on addressing drug use in our community, because people would be more comfortable with getting help because it's not, the stigma that's associated with it is no longer there.
Well, and
Kim
it's, go ahead,
also brought up that when people have been stopped for having the Narcan kits, that it didn't stop there when it was explained to the officer what they were and that this is not a crime. But there were many occasions when the officer would go back and refer to, go to the computer, go look at the person's record, and wind up arresting the person for what they've done in the past or for suspicion. That, it put, so everyone who gets stopped for a Narcan kit is in danger of being arrested.
where I think, isn't it true that in Illinois, they are commonly found at convenience stores? Narcan kits?
I think a lot of places have them. A lot of other states. I don't know if it's a thing with Iowa. I think in Iowa, and if Kim is on, can you comment in the comments if I'm correct on this? But I think in Iowa, the issue is that needles are considered drug paraphernalia. So that's where the issue comes in. I think it might be illegal for you to have the needles in the first place.
Ethelene Boyd, it was also brought up about having 3 or more condoms. When people have them, they're confiscated.
Yeah, I think these are all enforcement issues. Anything else on this? Then I think we're on to demilitarizing the police.
Janelle, one of the commenters has asked that you use the term sex work and not prostitution.
Yes, definitely change that. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
One of the Ethylene Boyd, one of the speakers were concerned about the police reaction to the meeting, and she thought that the union was being defensive, and she wanted to let us know, to remind us about how important it is for us to work with officials, even though it may be sometimes hard to hear criticism, but we don't understand the scope unless we, talk and share. Would this be the time to talk about what was that called? A citizen review board. Would this be?
I think that might be the next one, Ethylene.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's coming up. Keep that thought.
Hey, Janelle, this is Mike. We've got 2 hands that are up. Mike Greenleaf again, and Tammy Trice. Mike has been trying to speak for some time now, so see if you can unmute Mike and speak.
Yes.
Still cannot hear you, Mike.
Mike, is the volume on your computer maybe way down?
Cody says
have the hosts unmuted him?
Yes, he's unmuted. Yes.
Okay. Maybe he can comment in the chat box then, since his microphone doesn't seem to be coming through.
Or he could
call in.
Exactly. He could call in and speak through his telephone if he so chooses to do so.
Okay, I think in the invitation email, there was an audio number. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep, there's an audio in there.
I could try to find that.
We could let Tammy go ahead and speak while we're trying to get him squared away.
I don't think Tammy is on the panel unless she's
okay.
representing one of the groups.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
No, but you're not on the panel, I'm told, and so we, unless you represent one of the groups.
So am I allowed to speak now, or do I need to wait?
You're gonna have to wait for right now.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
I'm going to post the number, the call-in number on the chat box.
Okay.
He commented in the box and said he wanted to say that needles are commonly used in Narcan kits, and if they are, is not considered paraphernalia until it's used for an illegal purpose. But a previous member said that they are used as an excuse to charge people with possession.
I'm not able to find the number. Any other, I mean, I think this would be a,
It's posted, Janelle.
It's in the chat room.
yes, yes. I was getting back to the chokeholds, knee to neck, use of force standards, body cameras, dash cams. What do we want to say about this?
Janelle, can we get the police chief to speak to the current law that our state has passed that speaks to chokeholds and body cams?
I agree, that would be helpful. Chief Sikorsky, are you there? Are you available? Are you in the council chambers? Mr. Mayor, can you maybe come on and let us know if there's anybody there that can speak to this? Well, I don't know that there's any one of us who is,
Jerry is saying that he needed to be unmuted.
oh, great.
Sorry, you got unmuted. We're good.
Oh, it's kind of.
Not very well.
I don't know what to tell you. We're trying to speak.
That's the only one working up there.
Can you hear me?
Very, very badly. You're breaking up really badly.
I don't know what to tell you. We can chat in, but most of our police have body cameras, and we've had that as a we've. I don't know. This is Chief Sikorsky. Can you guys hear me? Audio doesn't seem to be working. Sorry.
Let me see what I can look up.
They have weird body cameras again.
Probably the microphone volume over there needs to be adjusted.
He has to be unmuted.
They may not mute him.
Can you hear us now? This is pretty loud.
Who was that?
This is pretty loud. Can you hear us?
I cannot understand. Can you hear Janelle?
No, I cannot hear a thing. It's,
Ask her, does she want me to call Janelle herself?
Tell them to move on.
Or that?
Can someone put in the chat what they want to ask?
do they want to try to call me on my cell phone and I can try to hold my cell phone up to my microphone? 563-349-8182. Hello? Yes, hi. We'll try to do like we did the other day. Can you put on the chief? Thank you. We're wondering, just briefly, what the new law is that was passed by the Iowa legislature regarding use of force policy, the statewide policy,
And body cam use.
and body cameras too. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna put you up here. The mayor is reminding us that Davenport police do have a policy that they wear body cams always and that they're always on. That is the policy.
Is that mandatory?
The question, Mr. Mayor, is whether that is mandatory, and I understand that it is. Is that correct? It is mandatory.
Is there any procedure if the body camera malfunctions or stops functioning?
So what about dash cams, dashboard cameras?
Janelle, can you put him on speaker so that the captioner can caption what's being said?
Okay, hang on.
We're having our tech experts sign into the meeting to get this going. Please, you gotta have us unmuted. They keep muting us.
We hear you.
Reading the chat. Again.
So is the chief able to hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so the question I think is, if you're able to describe the new, I think it's our understanding that there is a rather new, that the Iowa legislature, early in the summer passed a new use of force law in Iowa. And are you able to describe that for us? Or a policy?
Jerry is asking that we unmute this 349-1737 number, and I have hit ask to unmute several times. Are they getting any sort of prompt on their end? Can the mayor hear me?
Do you have your phone muted?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
But you got to unmute your phone.
It's not our end.
It's on our end. What we have is a box that says ask to unmute, and I've hit it several times and it's not. So that you should be getting a prompt to unmute.
Well, but Mr. Mayor, it does sound like you're able to hear me. Is that correct?
It is. This is the chief. We're having a lot of difficulties here.
Oh, sorry.
Huge echo, and it's really hard. And I apologize. If you would like, perhaps we could go over the Senate or the House file 2647 is the number for it. And we do have a policy on use of force and body cameras, and we can certainly go over that at a later date.
You could hear it really clearly that time.
Yeah. And I take it that that is something that we could look up.
Yeah, we can. And I apologize, but we're having a really tough time in here. I'm hearing 3 different echoes, and it's really bad.
It's probably from the microphone there and multiple streams connected at once.
Yep.
Okay, have them talk now.
Is this better?
We don't have a problem hearing you, Janelle. And we only have one screen up here and one computer. We don't have multiple things here.
Yeah.
Except for me talking down my phone.
Yeah.
Can we move on?
I guess so.
Are we moving on to?
Well, I mean, we're moving on without them, I guess, is the implication.
So are we done with demilitarizing the police?
Well, unless someone has more to say. I mean, obviously, I think when it comes to articulating a recommendation, that's where it will become important to, flesh this out a bit. But, and I can certainly look up House File 2647, but maybe that's for.
Oh, go ahead, Janelle.
Go ahead, Latrice.
One thing that the other cities did was they had an existing policy on these items, but they still developed a community input group, and they reviewed the policies and are coming up with revisions for it. So even though they have the policies and they might align with 2647, but maybe the local policy could be a little bit better, a little stronger. And so they formulated those groups to work on that.
Yep, and Janelle, this is Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And another thing that has to be addressed too, and with the body cams usage and the ban chokehold, is how does it really affect disciplinary actions for a policeman that does not have his body cam on and things of that nature. So, I think we're gonna have to move on, because I would like to hear from the chief and the mayor, so that we can speak to the source in terms of kind of outlining what we think should be versus what the current law says for here in Davenport.
Well, and I don't know that there's more that we're going to be able to hear this evening.
Not tonight, but we're gonna
Yeah.
have to hear something else a little bit later and stuff, and so.
Yeah.
So let's move on to decentralized decision making.
Well, we heard comments earlier that DCAP really did not seem to be, you know, what was going to fit the bill, especially with racial profiling. Do we want to say more about that? Or just in general, whether we think an independent review board is a good idea?
Well, we got a lot of comments in the meeting on August 1st regarding the Independent Civilian Review Board, and as you see on what's on the screen, this is an issue that's being addressed in Cedar Rapids, in Iowa City, in West Des Moines, and Dubuque. This seems to be a common issue across several cities in the state. And there is an issue of concern about policing police, and that there needs to be civilian input into these issues. So I think we should. I think we should go.
Any other comments? Any other issues that we have not addressed that anyone would like to speak to?
There are the two other issues beneath that. One of them was investing in neighborhood councils who participate in municipal decision-making, and Cedar Rapids has done that. There is the abolition of qualified immunity also for Cedar Rapids.
Oh,
and
okay,
to have
yeah.
law enforcement and municipal government negotiations be public.
Any discussion on any of those?
Well,
Go ahead, Michael.
well, once again, this is Mike. I would definitely love to have input from the police union or the police chief to talk about qualified immunity, and it's something that has to be talked about, because I don't think any other profession has qualified immunity in order to do their job. And so it's an issue that I think needs some in-depth discussion. Why is it just only needed for the police department?
And I would like to talk to the idea of the invest in community councils concept. I mean, I think that it's good that the invest in community councils who participate in municipal decision-making, but I see another function for those community councils as well. I think that one of our core problems may very well be the lack of interaction outside of police intervention of the police officers and the community and the community. I would like to see an opportunity for the police officers, perhaps through these neighborhood councils, to be able to get together and get to know the people in their neighborhoods that they patrol, and that the people get to know them, and they humanize each other instead of being afraid of the police officer or the police officer being afraid of someone being potentially dangerous to them. They can have that relationship, and I think that would be healthy for both the neighborhoods and for the police, and ultimately for the entire city.
Any other comments?
Ethelene Boyd, I agree with Commissioner Carp. When I started teaching years ago, we had, officer friendly, and for years and years, it was just, they'd come to our classroom, they'd be on the playground, they'd be, kids would run and give them a hug. It was a special situation.
Any other comments from anybody? And those of you in the council chambers, I apologize that the technology apparently tonight is really failing us, and who knows whether it has anything to do with the derecho storm or what's going on, or the Zoom issues earlier today, but it's not allowing us to have a full meeting, and I that's too bad. Well, do we want to take a short break before we have public comment, or do we want to forge ahead?
I'll say
Marion
let's
McGinnis has, oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Marion McGinnis has commented in the comment box, and she said that neighborhood councils are strong in some states and cities. Cincinnati is one. There are cities in Indiana who have strong neighborhood councils. They have a voice in the government there. Interestingly, when the 2025 plan was done in 2005, Davenport was described as being developed by districts, and that is true, I think. I live in what I feel is a true neighborhood, but these seem hard to establish here. We are a 67 square mile city, and that makes it difficult, but I believe it's worth pursuing.
That's interesting.
And Jerry Nagel says, Mayor Mattson wants everyone to know that we can hear everything that is being said, and thank you.
Thanks. So again, a break or on to public comment?
Let's keep it moving.
Okay. Everybody agree to that?
Janelle,
Okay.
Janelle, it's Ruby. I do have to meet with one of my students at 8 o'clock, so I'll jump out of here.
Okay. Thanks, Ruby. Yep. Okay, members of the public, please make comments.
Thank you. Michelle Royal, QC Pride. Earlier this year, I was on the news with KWQC talking about the Human Rights Commission's ratings for Davenport, and it was brought to our attention that the last 2 years the rating has dropped because of improper or not reporting of all of hate crimes, which has lowered the score when we used to get a perfect 100 in Davenport. And by that drop of score, you also jeopardize losing needed fundings for these kind of things. So I'm wondering what we can do to get proper reporting if there's not being any reports filed at all.
Something to look into, yes.
Yes. I mean, we had 0 hate crimes reported the last 2 years. You can't tell me there hasn't been a hate crime committed in Davenport in the last 2 years. Something to look into.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Latrice, can you add comments like that to the bottom of this list from the 8 can't wait? Because those are also issues that we should be focusing on in terms of our recommendations.
And you can look up your Human Rights Commission report and see the drop over the last 2 years. So it's factual in case anybody doesn't believe in the facts, because people want facts on here, I can see.
Thank you.
Do you mean like move it up from
No,
where it
no,
is? Or?
I didn't see that you had actually made that note. But now that I see it, thank you.
No problem.
Other comments?
If other people, okay, there we go.
We also got Doc for not having an LGBTQ liaisons on in Davenport too, just so you know.
Thank you. My name is Deb Saberi, and my comment goes back to the fair housing. And one of the panelists was making the point that there's only so much money to go around, which I agree with. But I think that you have to look at the fact that we're either going to pay now or we're going to pay later. And if we pay later, we're going to pay a whole lot more than if we take care of this now, because the problems are going to just snowball. So I think we need to look at a long-term, take a longer-term view here and look at what's going to happen in the future, not what's going to happen 6 months from now. That would be my comment on that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman McGinnis.
Max Hudson, you should be unmuted.
Thank you. I'm Max. I'm non-binary. I use they, them pronouns. I'm disabled and I'm also neurodiverse. I live on the Illinois side of the Quad Cities, and I have a decent amount of comments on a lot of the stuff that has been brought up today. I, first of all, personally do not believe that having a conversation with a person who is oppressing me is really going to get across the point that I'm being oppressed. I think that an important way for us to communicate, the community to be able to communicate with the police department is, why is no one from the police department here listening? Or I mean, why is the police department not required to be here at all? Listen to their citizens make comments and suggestions to the city. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, my impression is that at least Police Chief Sikorsky is, down at council chambers, but is just not able to make comments that we can hear. So
Okay, so the
That's the
conversations are happening. And I wish that we could make some progress instead of having people repeat. We should just be having conversations. And I'm just going to end there because I'm done.
Well, I'm sorry, and thank you for your comments.
It should also be noted that Officer Michael Greenleaf is also on this Zoom, and he's the chairman of the Professional Union of Police Officers for Davenport. So we have the police officers and the police chief represented, as well as the police chief, the whole department. So
Yes, thank you, Henry.
Danny, you can go ahead.
Hey, grace and peace. This is Pastor Daniel Teague. I'm sitting here listening, and the last time I got on, which was the last meeting, I talked about a conversation being offensive, and I'm back being offended again because I'm sitting here going over some notes. Back in 2014-15, under a different mayor, different police chief, it seems like the conversation was real similar. We're having the exact same conversation again. The only thing that's been added this particular time is chokeholds and body cams. Then we changed mayors again in 2016, and we got a new chief of police. Much respect to Paul Sikorsky. And we had a different mayor at that time. And we started having this conversation again, and the conversation is real similar to what we had back in 2015, 2016. There was little conversation here and there about 2017. This is where it becomes offensive because we keep having to come and ask to be treated like normal human beings. That's not right. We keep having to come and ask city officials, elected officials, get this thing right. We're making more out of this than what it needs to be instead of people just saying enough's enough. I'm done talking.
Thank you, Pastor T.
Max, I see that you commented in the chat box, and I would like to apologize. If you want to say something further, please feel free to. I see your hand is still raised. I'm going to lower your hand, but if you want to say something further, you can re-raise it.
Thank you, Latrice.
Andrew D.
Hi there, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
So I have a lot of things to talk about, but I'll make it quick. First thing is, we have this conversation once again, and like everyone's been saying, what is the next step, right? We talk about all these problems and all these solutions, but there's no step forward. I will also say, going along with that, someone talked about, where is the police in this conversation? I mean, they're listening here, right? But as you've seen, they haven't volunteered any changes whatsoever, and the first thing that came to mind kind of indicated that they wouldn't do anything about it was that statement that they put out before the last meeting, before the one on the 1st of August, talking about how the Davenport Civil Rights Commission is stepping over their line, they should involve the police, et cetera, et cetera. And that just tells me right there that they're not going to change themselves. So we shouldn't really cooperate with them, right? Because if they're already indicating that they're not going to change and they're going to in fact attack everyone who even talks about police reform, then it should be done completely without the input of the police at this point, because they're not going to hold themselves accountable. So that's my opinion on that matter. I want to add something else. This Saturday, we had a white supremacist rally in Davenport. And I know it was called a, back the blue pro-gun rally, right? But here's the thing. So one of the organizers
is a white supremacist. Before he locked down his Facebook account, he had a swastika tattoo on his chest. He was one of the main organizers of this event. The Davenport Gun Club was also an organizer. When they found out they had a Nazi organizing the protest, they actually backed out, put out this big statement saying, whoops, we didn't see that. Sorry about that. We don't want to be affiliated with that kind of hate. But that's a huge problem here in the Quad Cities, white supremacy. What really disturbs me too is that there's this article I'm reading right now from the Quad City Times, and they did a little overview of the protests that were going on Saturday. And it looks like Alderman Ambrose was at the Back the Blue rally. So what's up with that? I'd like to hear what he has to say about that. It's probably the same old thing that he said in the article, which is pretty much just the police are doing a great job. They're doing as great as any other police department, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be nothing. There's nothing really there's no need to change. So until we get some of the people on the city council to start going on and actually doing something about it, we got to stop talking and start making a move. So that's all I got to say. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry, Brian, you can go ahead and speak.
Okay, Brian Winger, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted a little backstory about me because I see people are questioning why I'm on this and I'm from Moline. First and foremost, I just up until like 8 months ago, I did live in Davenport. I started decriminalize Davenport, trying to get marijuana decriminalized in the city of Davenport to take down the stoppages of, you know, Black people getting arrested more than white people. I'm not sure if everybody knows on this call or not, but white people and Black people smoke at the same rate. Yet in the city of Davenport, Black people get arrested 8 times more for marijuana than white people. That's a problem. That's a problem for me. I've been bringing this to 2 different city councils and 2 different mayors for over a year now, and it's always fell on deaf ears. I don't understand why. I don't understand why they're scared. I don't, you know, Mayor Matson's on here, and he told me to bring him stats. I have all the stats you would ever need, Mr. Matson, and you never care to get them from me. I don't understand what's going on, but this is something that needs to be done. Other cities are doing it. We need to do it here. That's it.
Thank you.
Jody.
Yes, thank you. Jody Walker. I wanted to speak on the security resource or school resource officer. I know the teachers are against having them removed. I think a good percentage of the parents are against having them removed, and invite this committee as a whole to approach it with a different way of going. We need to get male mentors in the schools to help be a liaison between the officer and the kids. We have a lot of troubled kids that need some adult male figures. And until violence goes down, you're not going to get the officers removed because the teachers are not going to allow it. The kids are the ones that we should be advocating for. We need to be there for them, and we need people to be at the school and help them through tough times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alexandria?
Yes, hi, I'm Alexandra Dermody. My comment is simply that, so my boyfriend is Black, and most of my friends are. And why is it that, because I am a white woman, and I do lead a life from a privileged position, but why is it that I have to be scared to take my boyfriend somewhere? Because I'm afraid someone's gonna pull me over, see a Black man in my car, and shoot him. The man who I plan to marry, who I love with all my life, I have to go every single day terrified that he's going to get shot. My boyfriend's also autistic. He can't read social cues too well. We all know the history with that, how police treat people like that. Why is it that we're still having this conversation now, after all these years of seeing the injustice, when people have died, people have been murdered? There's no question about it. There's no debate. We need something to change, because if I'm scared for my boyfriend, how do you think he feels being a Black man in this world? How do you think his mother feels, terrified that she's going to wake up one day and her son, who's barely 19, is going to be killed? Why are we still having this conversation? There needs to be reform, and there needs to be justice for the people who have been harmed. The police and the city need to be held accountable for their lack of action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
This is Laura Rodriguez on behalf of Quad Cities DSA reporting in. I would just like to address the comment that was made about the school resource officers by Jody. I would like to know if Jody is in touch with parents of children with disabilities, because I saw that district-wide Davenport has been really leading the charge on addressing certain inequalities within Davenport schools that were honestly a stain on the city of Davenport and should have been taken a little more seriously by everybody. It's kind of been swept under the rug, and it's an ongoing issue. What's happening is there's disparities in the way that Black and Brown children are disciplined and put into disability programs and put on IEPs, and the use of seclusion rooms, which is just horrifying as a person with a disability myself and the mother of a child with a disability who is a Latino child. The disparities keep me up at night. I mean, it's something that I would never move to Davenport and willingly put my child through school there. So Jody, as much as perhaps you speak for the majority of parents, I want you to keep in mind that there is a gross inequality happening. And maybe you're seeing 90% of the parents who really love these school resource officers. When you have to keep in mind, 90% of Davenport, give or take, is white. And what is it, 11% or so is Black? I think it's like something like that. And as somebody had said at the city council meeting a few weeks back, if you ask the kids, in the classroom, 9 out of 10 will raise their hands and say they love their SRO. Well, what about that one child? Okay, in every classroom, that 1 out of 10. What about the people with minorities? That's what the Civil Rights Commission is for, to protect them and make sure that there's equality in their education. So Jody, I would like you to perhaps do a little more research on how those disparities exist and how SROs contribute to the school to prison pipeline and gross trauma for our children of color in the community. Perhaps you'll change your mind on those viewpoints. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne?
Yes, hi. My name is Ann McNellis. I am a mental health professional working in the community I'm a clinical director for Transitions Mental Health Services, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker with over 26 years of experience in the field. I'm really not wanting to take up much time of the platform time. I've been on for the 2 hours, so I know everyone's probably tired. But I would like to, first of all, say I am officially in full support of the 8 resolutions and reforms proposed on the list shared this evening. Additionally, though, I want to offer my training and knowledge, volunteer that actually to the City Council as well as to the Davenport Commission in terms of becoming a more trauma-informed community. Specifically speaking to you and providing some training around addressing why becoming a trauma-informed community is important when you're addressing the notion of safe, affordable housing. When we talk about SROs in schools and addressing the racial inequalities and policies and procedures that are school to prison pipeline types of policies, providing that information and addressing the research around that from a trauma-informed lens, as well as talking about the concept of mental health social workers / crisis workers working in tandem with police departments. I have experience doing that in the very beginning part of my professional career, as well as 26 years experience working somewhat collaboratively in regards to the police that we have had to interface with around our clientele. We also at Transitions have a role in the mental health court on both sides of the river. So we have a significant amount of experience and expertise around working with those with mental health issues that enter into the criminal justice system. So again, if you want to move forward with any kind of planning and initiative, I would just like to volunteer my time to assist with that and providing that type of training. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian and Jody, I'm going to lower your hands, and if you were intending to make an additional comment, will you raise them again?
Thank you. I want to address Laura again. By the way, yes, I am in touch with children with disabilities. We have several children in our family that have learning disabilities. Additionally, to make it known for the meeting, I have 2 grandchildren that are biracial. So I'm very much aware of how things are approached. For every con you have for a resource officer, I can find a pro. I've found several incidences within the past year where SRO has aided and saved several children's lives. Additionally, I also discovered that President Obama had done a research, and one of his recommendations was put additional 1,000 SROs in schools. So this is out there. SROs are just as good, as well as you can find them just as bad. So again, I implore upon everybody, SROs, it's going to be very hard to get them out of the school district. Why don't we find a way of making them work for the smaller percentage by getting role models, getting a liaison in there so the SRO isn't the first one that they see to aid and assist. The teachers, again, will not go to school without an SRO. So where is the social programs? There are several free programs out there that you can implement. We need to get people into the schools to volunteer time to be a liaison for that child. Thank you.
Thank you.
It doesn't look like anyone else has their hand raised.
Okay. Any other members of the public who would like to make comment should do so now.
Jody, I would just like to counterpoint. This is Lauda Rodriguez. Who is training these mentors and where are they coming from? As it stands right now, there are big brother, big sister programs that are understaffed in our cities. And frankly, the people that come in, my son has utilized their services. They're not the kind of people I want around my son, quite frankly. And it's very privileged of you to assume that, you know, people can just volunteer their time to be mentors around the communities. It's just kind of idealistic and naive to assume that that is even a thing that's going to happen. We need real strategies, Jody, like not just idealistic, feel good initiatives. We need actual action.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh. Latrice, it looks like Carrie Clark would like to speak.
I would just like to go back to the point that both Lada and Dennis Platt made, which is what could be done now. Not everything needs a change in a state law. Not everything needs a budget change. What can the city commit to doing now?
Thank you. Any more public comments?
Got one from Dennis Platt there.
Dennis, I'm trying to unmute you.
Hello?
Okay, Dennis, you're good to go.
Okay. I guess I think comments about expecting the community to generate more volunteers to do more things without pay is probably unrealistic. Of the people I know volunteering for different agencies, there just is not enough time in the day or the week or anything. And we all know families don't work 40-hour weeks anymore. People are expected to work 45 and 50 hours just to keep their household functioning. And I think this community has to make a commitment to reorder its priorities. If this is a problem that is worth solving, it's worth paying people in the community to solve it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Timothy Miller would like to speak, excuse me.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I would like to basically agree with the comments that Dennis made and the fact that troubled children come from complex circumstances. The causes of their being singled out are complex. The trick then is not to add more law enforcement officers, but to deal with these people who are still in their formative years in a way that will redeem their lives rather than condemn their lives. These are common sense measures which can only be objected to if we are committed to the school to prison pipeline. So I encourage Davenport to act on these proposals as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Am I still muted?
No, you can go, Deb.
Okay, good. I thought I was still muted. I just have a couple points. First of all, I think that the council found the money to fund two part-time, as I understand it, two additional part-time SROs for schools in Davenport last meeting or a couple meetings ago. If they could find the money to do that, why could they not find the money to fund a part-time social worker in one of the elementary schools or middle schools, and even just on a trial basis to see how that worked out? And my point is, I guess, that there is money. It's the discretion of where you spend it that the issue becomes more complex. And they seem to think it was okay to spend it with the SROs. And I questioned that perhaps it might have been better to check and see if there was something else that might have been equally as successful. My second question is, I understand the mayor and Chief Sikorsky are listening. And they don't have to answer that right now, but what would be the chances of some sort of a forum with them answering the questions that we have for them? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think that's what we had intended for this evening, but technology has failed us.
Roy, you can go ahead and speak.
Okay, hello, I'm Roy Burchard. I just have one simple question. Does the Civil Rights Commission oppose white racism? That's my question, and that's all.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, it appears that we have concluded.
I have a comment. I have a comment. I want to rebuttal that last person there. I don't know what he was talking about when he said white racism, but I just want him to know, if he's still listening, and everybody else that's listening right now, to know that there is no racism against white people. White people are the oppressors, and they always have been. You can't be racist against an oppressor. Understand it, learn it, live it. I am done.
Thank you. If we are concluded with, Latrice, does it appear we are concluded with public comment?
It looks like it. I don't see anyone else's hand raised.
Well, I want to thank all members of the public who made comments. And with that, it seems that the Davenport Civil Rights Commission now is, we may want to take up specific suggestions, specific issues that we want to, I guess, elevate to passing along to the city council. And I would certainly entertain ideas about whether we feel that we can vote tonight on those, or whether we feel there needs to be refinement, or what is the sense of the commission?
My sense is that we have a lot of information that in front of us here and a lot to process that we need, and that's exactly what we need to do. We need to go through this as a commission, and from all of what we've gathered, frame the resolutions or the recommendations that we'll be presenting. And I think after over 2 hours of this meeting, I don't think we have another 2 hours in which to actually do that job tonight. I think we have to set aside time to do that job soon.
Yeah, this is Mike Guster. I tend to agree with Rabbi Kopp. One reason that I agree is that we can't make a decision tonight is because one is that we have not had the opportunity to hear from the police chief or the mayor,
Yeah.
or the union president, Mike Greenleaf, and I would like to have a conversation with them in the particular areas that we've talked to and that they were not able to give comment about. So I don't think we're in the position to make a decision whether or not we're going to make a recommendation. But let me back up. Just where I'm at, and because of who I am, and because of the color of my skin, I am prepared to make a recommendation, but I don't have enough information to make that recommendation. And so I want to take an opportunity to give all concerned to have input so that we can at least have listened and we digested all the things, all the information we need to, and then we can make a decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any other thoughts? Well, I'm getting the sense that it's been a long meeting. People are tired. I am also getting the sense that, you know, we need to move this along. And so are we thinking that another special meeting with the police would be the way to go? Maybe just with the police? What do people think?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that we need them there, and you know, and we want input from the police chief and as well as the mayor too, and the union as well. And and I'm just an individual. I mean, I speak what's on my mind. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. The fact is that we need to hear from them, and so that we can make the correct decision. And just these 8 things, I believe, is fundamentally something that we can implement. And at some point in time, Davenport, Iowa has to take the lead and not be the tail. You know, we're a city on the river. We expect people to come here. We expect the the visitors to come here. And, you know, people don't want to come to a city where part of the population is not being treated fairly or is not inclusive in what we have is what we call this city from an economical standpoint, from a school standpoint, and from treating everybody with dignity and respect. And that's a must in anything that we do. And so I'll be quiet right there, and that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with needing to meet with the three that Commissioner Guster mentioned.
So am I hearing that we want to schedule another special meeting?
Jerry Nagel is asking in the comment box if any of the commissioners have a question for Mayor Matson.
I'm sorry, Latrice, I couldn't quite understand that.
Jerry Nagel is asking in the comment box if any of the commissioners have a question for Mayor Matson.
Oh. Do any commissioners have a question for Mayor Matson?
What is his reaction to all that he has heard here this evening?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Janelle, hello, Mayor Matson here. So just to reiterate, I've been sitting here with Alderman Dorman, Alderman Dunn, Chief Sikorsky, and Jerry's been helping us with technology. So first, I'll apologize. I don't know how or why we had that middle where we couldn't communicate with you too well, but I appreciate you letting me talk on the phone. So this is a wonderful discussion. We've been sitting here listening to all the communication. I'll just provide a couple of small comments. I think that many of my colleagues, at least on the council, and some other folks have heard me say at the dais, there's some concern that there's no action being taken about some of the concerns. Certainly, we have a lot to work on, and we're committed to continuing to do that. But we were asked previously to increase training for the police department, implicit bias and cultural sensitivity. As I said at council meeting last Wednesday, and we've been working with our HR department, our police department, 150 plus supervisors in all departments throughout the city will be receiving that training in September. And then everybody will be receiving it after that. And we're committed to increasing those training. We already have been doing it, but we're committed to increasing that training moving forward. But working with HR, just within weeks, we're going to make sure all our supervisors increase that. We were pushed hard, as folks know, that I and the police chief and the city administrator and others sit with the NAACP, Larry Robertson's president, Jasmine Newton-Butt, the LULAC president, Pastor Grimes, leader in the Churches United. We have roundtable discussions, and one of the focuses was trying to increase our police recruiting and making sure we reach out to all folks in our community to get an interest in our, again, departments, but especially in public safety. So we have sent out to all those organizations numerous times now a video introduction and orientation and workshop, and then we've created 3 in-person orientation and workshops in the community, and all that information is out, and up until September 8th, those workshops are happening, and then our recruiting for the PD is happening now, and we're encouraging everyone and everybody I talk to. I'm asking you to please partner with us and support and find and mentor and then, quite frankly, sponsor individuals that you feel would have at least the minimum criteria to fit the police requirements, and bring them to these work sessions and these orientation sessions, and then help them through the process. And then in October, we'll start our fire department recruiting. So we're committed to reaching out to all walks of life. Pastor Kirk has volunteered at his church just north of here to hold one of those sessions. So I'm asking everyone that's listening, if you feel you might have a good person that might you think be a good police officer, please bring them to these sessions now. And then for fire, please bring them to the sessions in October. We have the information. We follow the state code on use of force. We follow the ordinance on hate, and we did a resolution on hate a couple months back, actually, denouncing these things. I have said it publicly. The police chief and the police chief of Davenport and others have said this publicly. So we continue to do that. So I could go on, but if you have particular questions, I'm happy. On body cameras, we keep getting this question. I'm happy to keep taking this question, but we, the city council, my colleagues on the city council have previously enacted that the police will wear body cameras and will have body cameras on. And we have over 155 officers that have that. And our policy is to do that. So we're serious about that. And we, in fact, budgeted so we'd get more so that we can show the public that we think that's important. So I can talk, I can answer more questions or other thoughts, but we are serious about sitting in and listening and being part of the conversation that you guys are having. You know my feelings on SRO. I've said those publicly many times, the importance of having those. I know that there are many people on this call that disagree with that. But you've heard me talk about it, and I don't know that anybody here would not understand at least my position there. And the city council voted to do that with the amendment to make sure we work with the school district to come with a memorandum of understanding, because both in the school board meeting that they hosted a month or so, or 2 months ago, that had the NAACP and other folks in participation with that. A common thing that we continue to hear with SRO is there need to be evaluations, there need to be a focus, there needs to be expectations. We have already had 2 meetings, and we are developing that as we speak. So I'm happy to continue to listen and hear more of what you have to say, and then work on improving.
Mr. Mayor, this is Mike Guster. My question
Mike,
is,
hello.
What happens to an officer if he or she fails to wear his or her body cam fully operational?
I don't know, Mike, to be fair. I'll have to get back exactly the answer to you. I owe that. I'm asking the police chief to come up right now, and since our communication's working with you, we'll see. Hopefully this will work with him too. Chief Sikorsky here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
So to answer your question, we would go through a disciplinary process, and depending upon the specific circumstances of why it either wasn't engaged or it turned off during the incident, we would have to, go by whatever specific information there was for the incident. But we do have a policy for it, Mr. Gusser, for having your body camera engaged when you're dealing with a community member.
Say that once again, Chief, if you would, please.
So we do have a policy for our body cameras, and the officers are to use them when they're engaged with a community member.
Okay, let me just ask a question. I'm a little inquisitive, Chief, and if you find that an officer failed to activate his or her body cam because they did not want to, what is the disciplinary action that you would take against that officer?
So we have a disciplinary engagement with it, and it would depend on the circumstances. If they just didn't do it because they didn't want to, then they'd be disciplined for it. And then we have progressive discipline. So if they did it once, and then we have another incident, then the discipline progresses.
I understand, and I'm very much with the progressive disciplinary process. But here's my question. I'm trying to find out, and I guess the question I want to know: what's the first offense that you would consider doing?
What would I consider doing
Yes.
for a first offense?
Yes, sir.
Again, it would depend on the specifics, what kind of an incident it was there any force used, any of those things, but some kind of a reprimand initially, a written reprimand of some sort.
Okay. Now, and the other question that I would ask, do you look at that particular incident, or do you look at the officer's record as a whole as to how he or she has been interacting in the community or other disciplinary actions that may have taken place over the last 6 to 12 months or the 24 months or whatever?
So we look at that specific incident. However, we do have an early warning system, and I'm sure you're familiar with those as well, that include use of force incidents, sick use, complaints, all those kinds of things as an early warning intervention type of system as well.
Okay. I won't go any further, and that's why I think that this process here has to be talked to a little bit deeper in terms of the type of immunity that the police force is now have, and so I just think that we can do more, we can do better in protecting all the people of Davenport, with the exception of just some. So thank you for your comments, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Chief, I don't have anything, Chief. I do have some questions, but in the observance here of the time that's already been expended, I just think we will do something at a later date.
This is Mayor Watson standing here now. So.
I don't have anything else, guys.
I'm so tired right now that I would like to continue at a later date.
Janelle, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Janelle, okay, so Janelle, this is Mayor Watson. Janelle and I talk periodically. I'm happy to talk to people anytime they want to talk. I think most people know that. We might not 100% agree sometimes, but I'm always available. I call everybody back. I would appreciate in the comments that people don't cuss at me, but I try to be respectful of you. So I hope everybody's respectful for each other. I'm happy to continue or to talk to you at another time, but I'm always available if you want to talk.
Chairperson, can we continue at another time?
Janelle, you're not coming through. Rabbi Kopp, you want to take it until she gets that taken care of?
Well, I hate to be closing the meeting prematurely until without her with her being here. Janelle, can you hear us? Janelle, can you hear us? Yeah. Janelle, nod if you think we should close the meeting. I have gotten the nod from Janelle. So with her nod, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Rabbi Cobb, I think that Ethelene asked to come back and have another meeting on this, and I think we ought to speak to that before we close.
Okay, well, I would really like Janelle's actively in that conversation. Okay, and right now she's seems to be, for whatever reasons, disconnected. I think that we've the consensus has been that we should have another special meeting. When that special meeting is, I'd like Janelle to be part of that decision making. But hear from the members of the commission about whether or not, about how many are in favor of holding another special meeting in the near future to meet with Mayor Mattson, about Police Chief Sikorsky, and Michael Greenleaf, the president, the chair of the union. All in favor, say aye, or chat aye.
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 Yeah, are there any opposed? Any commissioners opposed? Then we will schedule another special meeting with those mentioned, and try and set a time that will work for us all. And now, Michael, with your permission, can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye, aye, aye. Then we stand adjourned.
All right, see you guys later. Thanks, Hinger.
Okay. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all those who shared on the panel, on all the guests who participated in the wonderful discussion with a tremendous amount of input. Thank you all.